Coming up on 339 WTIC News Talk 1080 in studio, State Representative Whit Betts from Bristol and a bunch of other towns, right?
Plymouth and Terryville.
There you go. Are those separate towns or are they all the same?
All the same.
Whenever I introduce Sean Williams, I say the state representative from Oakville, just to mess with them. So we got issues to talk about. We have busways. We have obviously gas prices we want to talk about. Matter of fact, we just had a caller who said, "Hey, by the way, I signed that petition. Whatever happened?" And I said, well, the best of my recollection, there were some 16,000 signatures, and the Republican legislators got together and respectfully gave it to the governor to consider a special session to get rid of this gas tax, which is not going to roads or bridges. So what happened?
It was submitted and ignored. And basically, it's not so much us as individual legislators that are being ignored and dismissed. It's the administration ignoring and dismissing the taxpayers and the motorists who...
So not even a response from the Malloy administration?
No.
Not even thanks for the signatures and
I have not
we'll see you next year? And
I've not seen or heard anything, but the one thing that struck
that's
me
a little
about
disrespectful.
This is people, when I was out there, got out of their cars and came over to sign the petition. And it was amazing how upset they were, not by just the gas tax, but the very fact that this money was not going to be used to fix the roads and bridges, which they have been for years, as you know,
right,
have been saying it's a top priority. DOT says it's a top priority. That's where the money's supposed to be going, and yet it's being used to support the operating expenses, the increases that the administration's doing for social services or whatever, but it's not going for what it's served for, and people are upset.
Well, there's a couple edges to this sword, and you're hitting the nail on the head. First of all, I can paper my wall here with the various reports that have come out talking about the roads and bridges in Connecticut in bad shape, and one after the other. Secondly, I think the Hartford Courant owes an apology to the Republican legislators, and they owed apologies to their readers. They did an editorial when the July 1st proposal, the increase in the tax was being implemented. They, as they always do, they kind of look down their nose at the Republican legislators that are out collecting signatures. Can you believe it, Hildred, that this is going on? Those silly Republicans are out collecting signatures from the peon taxpayers. And so in this editorial, they poo-pooed and made fun of the House Republicans for getting signatures, for wanting to roll back this increase, and then said something to the effect, don't these Republicans care about roads and bridges? Don't they understand that this money is going to the roads and bridges? And it's not. They weren't even factually correct. If they had any guts or any respect, they'd be apologizing for it, because they're perpetuating. First of all, we have some of the highest gas prices in the country, have some of the highest taxes in the country, and the money's not even going to roads and bridges.
Well, you're 100% right, because it's in the transcript, if everybody wants to see the facts in the debate, that this money is not going for roads and bridges. They're playing what I call Governor Malloy's wordsmith game. There's a budget item for transportation, and because it supports the overall state budget, they just say, oh, well, it is. It is not, and it was specifically stated so in the debate on the budget.
That's right.
But the second thing that really is interesting, I introduced a bill this session, which, of course, didn't even get a public hearing. So Hartford Courant, if you're listening to this, I had introduced a bill to reduce gas taxes in this state by 50% for the specific purpose of trying to help out Connecticut residents and businesses who are struggling with money and make us more competitive than our neighbors. And it turns out not only did we not have a public hearing, but we are so far out of whack in terms of prices that if we went and implemented that, we still couldn't compete with Massachusetts, which would be significantly less. But I just came back from Long Island, John, and I'll openly tell you, anytime I go out of the state of Connecticut, I always come back before I get into the state. I always get gas from wherever I'm coming from, because I don't even have to look at the price. It's cheaper.
Here's the deal. I mean, the facts are the facts are the facts. And Michael Fox, Michael J. Fox, as a matter of fact, is his real name. I don't know if you ever heard him on the show. He's the head of the Gas Dealers Association, whatever, out of Greenwich. And he had a huge gas station down in Greenwich back in the day. And when I was in office, we cut the gas tax, I want to say like 6 or 7 different times. We did it 2 cents, then we did it 3 cents, and then we did it 5 cents. And so we cut it down significantly because we were trying to keep our prices below our bordering states. And what the Office of Policy Management, they did a study, and they were able to show that if you keep your prices down below, you're going to maintain not only your residents, but other out-of-state people driving through town will continue to buy your gas. And it's pure supply and demand. This is not, this is not brain surgery. This is not going to the moon.
This is simple common sense.
This is simple common sense. And the point is, we've hit the tipping point. When people can tell me, and anybody listening right now, you can tell me what it cost to fill up your tank the last time you filled it up. You can probably tell me what the price was. You can probably tell me what the price is in neighboring states if you have ventured out there in the last 5 to 7 days. So the truth is the truth, and people are going out of state to fill up, and people from out of state are not stopping. So we're actually losing money. And the more these numbskulls think that by increasing these taxes, they're going to derive more revenue for themselves, it's actually not.
But again, we're here to represent the people. And I think what's happened over the last 3 years is I now believe that we are actually flipped our roles, and we are actually working for the government as opposed to the government working for the taxpayers and the people.
You mean like we get an allowance? I think it was Rob Kane, one of your colleagues. I said, what's the role of government? And he said, you started to say it. That's what made me think of it. Public health, public safety, public transportation, and education. Everything else is a bell and whistle. And we're so way past that. I mean, we're so past just providing some of those basic necessities and especially in the common defense, if you will, the common thread of sharing the expenses of all these things. And it's out of control. It's spinning out of control. And to your point, Whit, it seems like, well, we work longer in Connecticut than any other state to pay taxes. What's our tax day? I think it's January, February, March, April, May. It's sometime in late May, if I recall.
That's
May
correct.
15th or something. I can't remember the exact date. And people are mad. I have never seen people so mad in my life. And their anger is going to be expressed in leaving the state.
Well, I was playing bridge last night with 8 people. 4 of the 8 people are now Florida residents.
Oh, yeah.
And they just sit there and they make it very clear. We don't feel welcomed. I talked to a carpenter this morning. He went and said to me, he says, Whit, do you know that Connecticut is the worst place in the country to retire? And he's talking about moving to Pennsylvania. He said, there's nothing keeping me here now because everything I do is either going to get taxed or they're going to take more money out of my paycheck. They'll put more regulations in, more fees. I'm tired of it. And what I think is happening is what you said. People are genuinely, personally angry. They're suffering financially. They're suffering by having no job opportunities. They're at risk for health care. And they don't like the direction this state is going. And I personally am convinced that 2014 is going to be a dramatic year in terms of the leadership. I think you're going to see a big turnover because the people have just said, we have to get different people in there. This is not working. Status quo.
Yeah, we're not going to change their mind. I was delusional this past year thinking we were going to change people's minds. To your point about people leaving state, I was playing golf last weekend in Waterbury, and I ran into 2 friends of mine our age. One's exactly my age, 56. The other guy is 57. And both are retired and living out of state. One sold his business, made $1 gazillion. And to stay out of state, it affords him the opportunity to keep his jet going back and forth because of the lower taxes. The other guy was an accountant, and he's just enjoying life and living in Florida with his kids. All right, 348 WTIC News Talk 1080. We'll open up the phone lines, 860-522-9842. State Representative Whit Betts in studio from Bristol, Connecticut, and we'll take your calls. We're going to talk about hospitals and the impact to the hospital industry based on what's happened with the Malloy supremacy. We'll be right back. All right, coming up on 351 WTIC News Talk 1080, Whit Betts, state representative from the Bristol community, in studio and knows a great deal about some of the hospital issues, obviously the tax issues and the gas tax issues, and the phones are lit up like a Christmas tree. So let's go take some calls. Let's go to Dave in Manchester. Hello, Dave.
Hi, how you doing, Governor?
Good.
Yeah, I got a good story for you how the gas tax is not really working. I work for a company out of Springfield, and we have a whole fleet of trucks, and we're specifically told not to fill up in the state of Connecticut. And we drive all over the state of Connecticut every day. And our whole company is based in the state of Connecticut. We're actually told when we leave the base, make sure we're full tanks, not to fill up the state.
And how many vehicles?
At least 50.
50?
50 3-foot, 18-wheelers.
Holy smokes.
So
50 vehicles times plus. How about diesel fuel?
We're all on diesel fuel.
So you guys are paying a small fortune. Holy smokes, that's the real deal.
And then at least 10 of us that I know of that live in the state of Connecticut, at night or on the weekends, we fill our own personal vehicles up before we even leave the state, because there's a 20 cents difference in gas price between Springfield and Enfield.
Jeez, holy smokes. All right, Dave, and here's the problem. When your boss is spending that much more money on fuel, that's that many more people that aren't going to be hired, that's that many more Christmas bonuses that aren't taking place, that much more health care that's not being purchased.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
That's big time.
He thought about moving into Connecticut, but he can't do it because he says the taxes are too much.
Unbelievable.
Money.
All right, Dave, thank you, sir. All right, let's jump over to Mary. Hello, Mary.
Hey, how are you, John?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. All right. Well, we're a small business in Waterbury, and you can't sell your business in this state. How are you going to sell it? No one wants to move in. No one wants to pay these exorbitant taxes. So what do you do?
So let me ask you this question. How long have you been in business?
Oh, my God.
Small business?
Yeah.
All right, 20 years, 30 years?
35, let's see, 25, 30, almost 38 years.
All right, so closing in on 40 years, you can't sell your business. Do you have family members to pass it on to? I mean, it's the combination of problems is that you as a family member, I mean, I know so many small business folks that aren't even taking a paycheck.
Well, of course, yeah, especially if they're mom and pop shop, I mean, and if you have children in them, you have to pay them and have to pay the help.
Do you think you're going to pass the company on to loved ones?
If they want it, yeah. But, they're very dissatisfied. They're very upset. I mean, they're imposing more regulations, rules, more licenses. I mean, it's nuts.
I was talking to Kevin Whitcoe, who just opened up a restaurant in Collinsville. He's a state representative from the Avon Canton area. And as I'm talking to him, he's describing some of the costs. And he says, oh, yeah. He said, I had to pay $182 to the Department of Labor to pay for those posters that he has to put up for his, 4 employees.
Right.
So they nickel and dime you to death.
That too. We get it all.
So what do you think the solution is, Mary? Change in leadership, change in legislators?
Change it all.
Yeah. I think.
Let me move to Australia.
Well, let me ask you, are you finding that people are madder than ever?
Oh, well, you know what? Everyone who walks through our door of business is madder than ever.
Yeah, it's. I don't think this is an aberration. This is not a small group of people. This is a tidal wave.
And rightfully so. But what can we do about it?
That's a great question. And this is what I want people to remember. The government's supposed to be working for you, the taxpayer, and the businesses. It's not the other way around. You have the ability to put people in or out. And what I would really recommend is you hold all of our feet to the fire. And if people who've been there for 10 years have continued to raise spending, raise taxes, make it difficult to operate a business, make it difficult to keep families together, then I think they need to be replaced.
Well, we all do, but how are you going to do that when the state pays out so much welfare?
And
there's 55% on welfare or more, and 47% work. Hello, it's just
It's half and half. Hey, Mary, I'm going to let you go because another issue we're going to talk about is Waterbury Hospital. And
that one I'm going to listen to because I'm very concerned about that also.
You got it. And Whit, it's interesting is that the veto that took place, that the governor won't get into all the gruesome details, but in essence, it looks like, well, let me explain this. We'll explain this to our listeners. There was a proposal that was put together by Republicans, Democrats, the governor's office, and it was to facilitate the mergers that are in place. And there's a whole bunch of them being proposed. This one in particular would affect the Waterbury Hospital, I think Bristol Hospital as well.
Correct.
And so in that process, of course, the unions are trying to gum up everything as they've been trying to do for 50 years across the state. And everybody agrees to the issue that it's going to, and we'll explain it, it's going to allow foundations to hire docs. So not really not a very contrary position, passed the House and the Senate, and the governor decides to veto the bill. He gave some lame explanation the other day, but the reason is that big labor got involved. Is that? I mean, there's no other way to couch it.
There's no other way of doing it. You would have to move mountains to pass a bill like this at 11:30 at night, unless you had the governor's approval in the writing and the adoption of this bill. The bottom line is simply this. I won't go into the details. My view is, and the view of most everybody in state government is, it is our role to ensure and provide public safety and medical care as two of our most important missions in government. And there are several hospitals that are financially weak and need help. And the state's not in the position to give them money to help them. They have come up with a strategy that will allow them to get much needed financial help, that will allow them to fulfill their mission of helping out the
and survive and employ people.
And that's what the people want.
And unfortunately, for some reason, this administration seems opposed to it. All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. We'll put some more meat on those bones because I think Mary from Waterbury is going to be very interested to see what happens to the two largest employers in the city of Waterbury, the two hospitals. 860-522-9842 if you'd like to join the conversation. Coming up on 358, Mr. Mark Christopher, how are we looking out there? Another hot and hazy day. All right, we have in studio Whit Betts, and we're talking about the hospitals. And are we in a perfect storm right now in terms of between Obamacare and the cuts and possible mergers and now the veto? And what does this all mean?
Well, I think what it means right now is we're in a state of chaos. Obamacare is getting more and more confusing. It's getting delayed in the state. There are a lot of hospitals that, after years of paying a special tax and lower reimbursements, are financially either weak or they've come up with different strategies to try and be able to remain strong in the community. And now, when the governor first came in, and I like this, he said, we just haven't gone out and marketed our state as a business-friendly state. And that's what I'm going to do. And all of us applauded that. And one of the things that came to my mind is when I saw the governor veto this bill, I sat there and thought, well, what are you doing here? I mean, how many jobs are being created because of this veto? Or are we going to be losing a lot of jobs?
Let me ask you, if I work for a hospital in Bristol or Waterbury, New Haven, Danbury, Hartford, should I be worried about my job?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I don't know that anybody is deliberately trying to close hospitals, but I do know that it is part of the mission of state government to ensure that we all have good quality, affordable health care. And I do think it is our role to be important, supportive partners with the hospitals, with the employees, with the medical community, to ensure we have an obligation to our taxpayers, who are our boss, okay, to ensure that they have it so their kids can get care, they can get care, their parents can get care, and the communities. If this went through, the nonprofit hospitals would become for-profit, and they'd be paying taxes to the municipalities.
So, in other words, if this merger were to go through, that has been proposed, and there's a few of them out there, they're happening all the time, or the proposals are, if Bristol Hospital, Waterbury Hospital become for-profit, then they start paying taxes to the cities and towns in millions of dollars.
Yes, a lot of money.
So let me see if I have this right. So if these mergers take place, there's a financial infusion. It saves hospitals that are going underwater. It keeps the job base, and there's revenue, income, tax-based taxes to the cities and towns.
Correct. And there's one other thing. Some of the hospitals need financial help, but there are other ones like Bristol Hospital, for example. We've spent 2 years developing a strategic plan on how to handle the medical needs of the future. And between the board of directors and the executive team, they came up with a recommendation of partnering with a for-profit hospital for the purpose of getting capital that they can't get from the state government, they can't get from bonding, so they can upgrade the facilities to meet the growing needs of their community. That was their selection process, and it was well thought out.
All right, 418. We're going to open up the phone lines. 860-522-9842, 1-800-966-WTIC. We'll talk about gas prices. We'll talk about small business. We'll talk about hospitals. Whit Betts in studio. We'll be right back. 423 WTIC News Talk 1080. John Rowland here with you. Nieces and nephews are flying the coop. They're leaving the state. Whit Betts in studio, and we're going to go right to the call. Let's go to Gordon in Lyme. Hello, Gordon in Lyme.
Mr. Governor, how are you, sir?
Good, sir.
Thank you for taking my call. Rhetorically, query. I'm a small business owner in a construction company. With the gas taxes, payroll taxes, sales taxes,
you're getting nickel and dime to death, aren't you?
I kick myself in the rear end, because who the heck would want to do that? But I did. And as your previous caller, Mary, said, you can't get out of it. It's not like you can liquidate and put some money in your pocket. In all quite honesty, since this fiscal year started, I've paid myself $3,000.
Yes.
I have 5 employees. Okay, I'm not a rich man. I make things work. And everyone gets paid, whether it's a wage job, whether it's a private job. Everyone gets paid except for me. But I supply 5 jobs to this economy in this state. And I'll tell you something else. Now I want to say this. 15, 20 years ago, your predecessor, Governor O'Neill, was very close with my father, who was a major player in Hartford. And they'd go out there and they'd go to Europe and try to bring business to the state of Connecticut. And I remember the joke was back then, and this is put a little lighter note on it. We used to call Massachusetts Taxachusetts.
Oh, I remember well. I joined that. I joined that chorus. I used to love to tease my friends over there. Taxachusetts.
Now we're all running to the borders.
Right.
And we are.
That's a sad reality, isn't it, Gordon?
It's a pathetic state of mind.
Let me ask.
Anyways, I'll leave you with that. And thank you for taking me on, and I appreciate the show.
Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate that as well. Here's the worst. So here's Gordon. He's paying this tax, that tax, new regulations. He's got mandated, paid this. He's got Obamacare. He's got 5 employees. He's got folks. Where's the economic certainty for Gordon to hire one more person this week, next week, or next month, and he's not even paying himself? And I think, Whit, the dirty little secret that Gordon, I'm sure, realizes, and I don't want to get his blood pressure up even higher, as he's doing it right, he's got the insurance certificates, he's paying the workers' comp, he's got a payroll. As he's doing it right, he's probably getting creamed on the smaller jobs when guys come in that are paying under the table, that don't have the insurance, haven't done the workers' comp. And that's adds insult to injury, and that's going on out there as well.
It's so unfair, and these people love Connecticut. They're standing up for their state. They're standing up for their families. But this has been happening over a long period of time. And one thing that people haven't really paid attention to is look at the job opportunities we've lost. General Electric went and opened up a brand new 350,000 square foot facility for the new engines in all places in Mississippi. And we couldn't get them to stay here in Connecticut to do that. We'd rather give Bridgewater whatever amount of money, $100 million. 115 to move, 10 minutes away.
6 miles.
And you have other companies that are, even if they stay here, they're not expanding here. We have to change the perception and the attitude of Connecticut, and that means we have to change the leadership.
Let's go to Susan in Simsbury. What are the gas prices in Simsbury? You have gas stations in Simsbury?
Yes, we have gas stations in Simsbury.
Like what, one?
He filled up down on Route 44. He paid $4.11.
$4.11. So my poor sister's at $4.17. She may have, I think she might have hit the bogey there. So $4.11. But here's a dumb question: what was it a week ago? Do you remember? It was when you filled up last time it was under $4, right?
Oh yeah, it was around $3. It was $3.90 something at that station. I don't fill up down there. I go up to Massachusetts.
Oh, geez, I have to call Susan. I'm afraid I have to report this to the authorities. You shouldn't be too far. Let's see. Look for a woman in Simsbury with a New York accent. Shouldn't be hard to find you. We're going to hunt you down, Susan, and report you to the appropriate authorities. It's depressing a little bit, isn't it?
It's very depressing. It's absolutely crazy.
We're driving people away. We're driving them out of state.
I'm sorry?
We're driving people out of state, was what Whit was saying. Where are you from originally? Where's this accent?
It's a sad thing to say that I'm up in northern, I'm in the northern part of Simsbury, so it's not that far for me to go to Massachusetts.
And you got my buddies up there. He got 30 cents he saved per gallon last weekend. He lives right where you live, probably the same neighborhood.